I met Mohamed Fahmy just after the momentous events began in Egypt in 2011. I noticed him immediately. He was always on the scene, in the crowds, on his phone, committed, connected. I had a running joke with an Egyptian colleague. We were trying to keep ahead of Mohamed Fahmy in the news game and always failing. And then he came to work with us for a while, and we saw close up the kind of contacts he had right across the spectrum and how he would chase those interviews, the stories, until he got them. And he wouldn't stop until he did. But now he has been stopped from doing his job, from doing journalism, by his detention. Free Mohamed Fahmy. We need him.
These journalists, and I've looked at their resumes, are bona fide journalists. They all have good resumes. They've all done fine work. They're not spreading false news. Everybody outside of that little clique in Egypt knows that these charges are nonsense.
The vast majority of Egyptians, I believe, certainly from the ones I met and who came to our defense, I believe Egypt likewise respects freedom of speech, and it's this government that's the problem, and it's this government which has to be called to task very forcefully on what they're doing to journalism, to freedom of expression in Egypt.
Clearly, in this situation, we're seeing, solid, award-winning journalists who weren't allowed to do their job. And so now we have, instead of people telling a story that the world wants to hear, we got people sitting in jail. It doesn't make any sense. It's not right, it's not fair. And it's something that affects all journalists. It's not just those at Al Jazeera who clearly were impacted by this, but any journalist who wants to tell the story of what's unfolding in Egypt will now, feel a chill because of that.
It's very precarious. This is quite disturbing, unsettling, and perhaps that's what some of the authorities want. They want a chill among journalists, both Egyptian journalists and foreign journalists. That's unfortunate, even tragic for Egypt, and it's not something that the world should stand by and watch idly.
Peter Gresta is an old friend, an old colleague, a very good man, a great journalist. We worked together on many of the big stories of our time, and I always found him to be very careful, considerate, compassionate, and very good company. Then he went to Africa, and he fell in love with the continent. Even after he joined another network, he kept in touch with all of us, his BBC colleagues, and we marveled at how he continued to find the stories that no one else did. We watched him, we learned from him. Free Peter Gresta. We miss him, we miss his work.
Should ask for these charges to be reviewed immediately at the very top and basically without any compelling evidence to show there's a reason for a trial should be now dropped. And these journalists should be released immediately.
We feel that it is crucially important that they show that their citizen is in captivity, he is unjustly being detained, and it is time to call for his release. And Mohamed Fahmy he does have dual citizenship, but that in this case should not matter whatsoever. He went to school in Montreal, he is a Canadian citizen, he's a Habs fan, he was supposed to get married this month, he was planning on resettling back in Canada, and he considers Canada home. And it's time to bring him home.
Obviously we've made representations at the highest levels. I spoke directly, met with my Egyptian counterpart last month and raised this issue. Obviously, it's demonstrably different from the previous case where there was two Canadians who were incarcerated but not facing any charges. So obviously, we want them to have a fair trial and the case to be dealt with expeditiously. And we've raised it at the highest levels. And obviously, this is a challenge when you have people who are dual nationals that have Canadian citizenship and the citizenship of another country. It's not unique to this case.